Hi, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A court hearing in BC's Supreme Court is currently underway that could potentially change the lives of thousands of Indigenous kids that were put into the child welfare system. APTN's Tina House has that story.
A class action lawsuit against Canada and the BC government for the mistreatment of kids in the child welfare system was launched today. Lawyers representing them say many were taken away from their culture, families, and many were abused. It has the potential to impact up to 10,000 plaintiffs, says lawyer Angela Beskflug.
We are here today seeking certification of an action on behalf of survivors of the Millennium Scoop, so off-reserve First Nation, Métis, and Inuit children, youth, and families. And so our position is, as against Canada and as against the province, that the system was flawed, it was broken, it prioritized removal over prevention services. It would have kept children with their families.
Jessie Neal was once one of those kids. She says she grew up in the system and is here to fight for other kids who were also taken away.
It's appalling to see how many young people are still treated inequitable and how much of the care population we make up. Over 60% of kids in care in BC specifically are Indigenous and placed in non-Indigenous homes, and as a result, have big holes in their lives.
Laura Dobson is also another plaintiff. She says for kids in care, the number has surpassed kids that were in residential school, and the conditions are not much different in many cases. She wants to see some major changes for other kids.
More resources, I think, like counseling, bridging the gaps, more supports, reunification. I know a lot of people say that there's lack of Indigenous homes for Indigenous children.
For the next 5 days, Laura and Jessie, along with 2 other plaintiffs and their lawyers, will be presenting their evidence in court.
The defendants have known about this for decades and decades and decades and have failed to remedy the situation. Because of that, our class members, our plaintiffs, have suffered harm. They can't be remedied by any compensation, but our goal is to, A, have the defendants acknowledge the wrongful behavior, B, get compensation for these plaintiffs and other class members, and C, try and get the defendants to change their way.
The decision in this class action lawsuit is expected in the next 3 months. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
To the East Coast now, and on the day of the national action for MMIWG and 2S people, family and supporters gathered in downtown Halifax for the Justice for Destiny Memorial Walk. Destiny Rennie died in hospital last August. Her family has now launched a lawsuit saying her death could have been prevented. Angel Moore reports.
Chief Michelle Glasgow of the Sabaganagati First Nation had this to say about Destiny Rennie.
Destiny is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful young lady inside and out, loved by everyone.
The 22-year-old Mi'kmaq woman died while in hospital on August 6, 2023, 3 days after experiencing brain death resulting from fungal meningitis. Donna Maiden is a family friend.
She's left a huge hole in our hearts, and we just miss her tremendously, and we just hope that this never happens to anybody again. It's a tragedy, and it should never have happened.
About 100 people marched in Jabuktuk to call for justice for Rennie on the National Day of Action for MMIWG and 2S people. Nat Narvi is also a family supporter. She read the calls for justice, focusing on the systemic racism in healthcare to the crowd.
We call upon all governments to ensure that the rights to health and wellness of Indigenous peoples, and specifically Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit LGBTQIA people are recognized and protected on an equitable basis.
Rennie's family claims hospital staff were negligent, so they're suing Nova Scotia Health and 4 doctors. They filed a notice of action last July with the Nova Scotia Supreme Court. It says one doctor assumed Rennie was likely using illicit drugs and based medical treatment on that assumption. Glasgow says the systemic racism needs to stop.
But when we go into a hospital, we shouldn't be looked at as First Nation, as non-Native. We should just be looked at as a person, as a human. It shouldn't matter what color our skin is, what ethnic background we have. We need to be treated equally. We need the same care that anyone would have coming in.
Deanne Sack is a band counselor who explained why they were supporting Destiny Rennie.
So the calls to justice, the calls to action. Why are we here today? How many young people do we have to lose? How many Indigenous people do we have to lose? I just can't get over this. So today was a good day to support and bring awareness to Destiny Forever 22.
The Nova Scotia Health Authority told APTN News since the matter is before the courts, they will not make any specific comments. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabuktuk, also known as Halifax.
Now to one of this week's web poll questions, where we're asking, do you believe the Red Dress Alert program will help reduce the number of MMIWG 2S plus cases? Yes, no, or unsure. You can find more on that program and our web poll questions on our website, aptnnews.ca. Indigenous Services Canada and the Assembly of First Nations have released a breakdown of estimated funding to First Nations by region over the next 5 years. The breakdown is part of the $47.8 billion reform of the First Nations and Child Family Services program ordered by the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. Each region's dollar amount is based on the registered population on reserve and on Crown land and in the Yukon as of December 31st of last year. Ontario and Alberta would receive the most money at $3.6 billion and $2.5 billion. Meanwhile, the Yukon would see the highest increase from its current funding at 70%. And it's important to note these dollar amounts are only the 5-year term, not the 10-year term, and the current amounts are not yet determined and will depend on leadership to approve it. And of course, that meeting will be taking place next week in Calgary. Time for a quick break, and then we'll tell you about a significant moment for the Canadian Armed Forces and Indigenous peoples. Stick around. Welcome back. This weekend marked a significant milestone for First Nations representation in the Canadian Armed Forces. On Saturday, Joel Pedersen, a member of the Fond du Lac First Nation in Saskatchewan, became the first First Nations person to be appointed Brigade Sergeant Major of the 38th Canadian Brigade. Reporter Sierra Bettens brings you to the ceremony and talks with Pedersen about his journey.
At a Canadian Forces base in Winnipeg, Chief Warrant Officer Joel Pedersen received some new insignia on his uniform. As a crowd erupted in applause, he became the first First Nation person to hold the role of Brigade Sergeant Major in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Being a First Nations person is really important for me to provide opportunities for men and women who maybe didn't see themselves being able to be in a position like this. It shows that you can.
A member of the Fond du Lac First Nation in Saskatchewan, Pedersen grew up in Brandon, Manitoba, and Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. He joined the forces at 17.
My mom actually kind of inspired me to join. She was in the military as a young person, and so was my dad. And she encouraged me to look at joining the Army Reserves, and that's what I did.
In his new role, Pedersen will oversee 16 Army Reserve units in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Northwest Ontario.
The position of the brigade sergeant major is I'm the most senior sergeant major within the brigade, and my responsibility really is to all the men and women of the brigade. The brigade is both operationally domestic, fighting fires, floods, but also international operations. So it's a busy brigade.
During the ceremony, Peterson was honored for his role as a mentor in the Bold Eagle program. Since 1989, the 6-week summer program, run by the Canadian Armed Forces, has provided military training to Indigenous youth.
The program in the essence of it was to really build that bridge for younger people. And I think what it's grown into now is a real opportunity for reconciliation for a lot of people. And we see now, after 30 plus years, we see generations of those Bold Eagle graduates.
Dutch Leratte, the second vice chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, traveled from Saskatchewan for the ceremony. He described Peterson as a role model to many.
It puts one First Nation from Fond du Lac, northern Saskatchewan, into a position now where he can continue being that role model not only to those at home but those within the Army structure. So it's a very important day, and we're here to celebrate that with him.
From Canada and the U.S. to Norway and Italy, Peterson's military career has taken him around the world. He looks forward to rising to the challenge in his new role.
I've gone a lot of places, and those are all great experiences, but where I'm at now is an opportunity to share with others the importance of what not only being a First Nation person can do, but also to ensure, that the success of the brigade as we move forward into a time where we're going to be more in demand and more operational.
Reflecting on his career, he shares advice for Indigenous youth interested in joining the forces.
For those Indigenous guys and gals that are thinking of joining the military as a career, it's a wonderful career. There's lots of opportunities, and when a door opens, you need to take the opportunity and step through it.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Some good news for a First Nation-run post-secondary school in Manitoba. To mark their 40th anniversary this month, they've been granted privileges, putting them on par with other provincial institutions. Here's T.R. Wheatley with more.
A painting with Anishinaabe teachings, a ceremonial lodge with the 4 levels of the universe, presented to school staff by Mahigan Linklater and the Dakota Ojibwe Tribal Council, or DOTC.
And of course, the lodge is a place of learning, and so we wanted to have something there to encapsulate that.
Symbolic for how far Yellow Quill has come, 1 level representing each decade. It opened in Portage-la Prairie as a college in 1984 with just 16 students. This past year, it was renamed Yellow Quill University College. Now there are nearly 500 students on 6 campuses across southern Manitoba, the biggest one here in Winnipeg on Long Plains Urban Reserve. This month, the province officially granted accreditation for the First Nations Bachelor of Teaching degree program.
One, will be faster to get more teachers in front of students in the classroom, which we know representation is so important. So that is a critically important step, but I think it also signals that the provincial government is willing and able and open to working with First Nations on a nation-to-nation basis.
The program was already in place here for 4 years as staff have worked behind the scenes with the province to meet academic requirements. In 2025, the school is expecting to see its first round of graduates from the program. There's currently over 100 students enrolled, including Joshua Greaves Thompson of Bonabonabee Cree Nation.
It came with a lot of trials. I was told that I should abandon this program and pursue my certification through another institution, but I always believed that Yellow Quill would become accredited, and I stayed here because it offers Indigenous instruction from Indigenous instructors.
Chastity Cook says Yellow Quill offers her a safe learning environment. Before this place, she tried a mainstream school, but often felt misunderstood.
I knew that what the program stood for was important, and I just stuck to my gut. I wanted to learn and reconnect with my culture, and I just stayed with it.
This year, Yellow Quill also started offering the First Nations Bachelor of Relations Studies, equivalent to a social work degree. Swan Lake Chief Jason Daniels is the chairman of DOTC. He reflects on why the council opened Yellow Quill in the first place.
You know, trying to deal with the difficult issues of poverty and how we can eradicate it by education and working and, you know, helping each other out.
Helping to make future leaders for their nations, something Yellow Quill founders set out to do. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Great news for the students and staff there. Still to come here, a preview of tonight's all-new episode of Face to Face. Stay with us. Welcome back. Here's a look at your current conditions. 16 in Halifax, 13 and cloudy in Charlottetown. Cloudy and 9 in Kuujjuaq, 5 at this hour in Nain. 9 in Montreal, cloudy and 7 in Val-d'Or. Sun's out and 10 in Sault Ste. Marie, 4 in North Bay. Sunny and 2 in Thunder Bay, 5 in Sioux Lookout. 0 in God's Lake and Churchill, 3 in Norway House. Sunny and 4 in Winnipeg, 8 and sunny skies in Dauphin. 3 in Regina and North Battleford, 4 in Saskatoon. 5 in Meadow Lake, 10 in La Ronge. Showers across parts of northern Alberta, 12 in High Level and Fort Chipewyan. 22 in Edmonton, 25 in Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. 16 and rain in Vancouver, showers and 22 in Kamloops. 13 in Prince George, 11 with rain in Smithers. 0 and snow in Old Crow, flurries and 5 in Whitehorse. 9 with rain in Yellowknife, 4 in Norman Wells. 0 and snow in Saxe Harbor, flurries and 4 in Paulatuck. Cloudy and 4 in Chesterfield, showers and 4 in Baker Lake. 0 with snow in Resolute, 2 in Igloo Lake. Art has been a constant thread in the life of an Indigenous silversmith in New Brunswick. Inspired by traditional knowledge from his family's past, he's weaving it into contemporary work, teaching for the next generation. CTV's Sarah Plowman explains.
Nature circles Nguitkook First Nation, also known as Tobic, where Shane Pearly Dutcher's journey is mapped by tradition. Weaving metal into baskets, the latest for a museum in Maine.
That represents the people, the Wabanaki people.
At a glance, the strips look like bark.
So when you get closer to it, you start to realize that it is actually metal, and it's copper. It's got some patina on it.
From large to medium size, Pearly Dutcher has pushed what's possible. His work has been displayed at art shows, won an international award, and was the trophy for a PGA golf tournament in New Brunswick this summer. Then there was 2008, when he crafted a pin worn by residential school survivors as Canada apologized in the House of Commons.
It was probably one of the most significant pieces I've ever made because of the weight of the message and the intention of the piece.
As he shifts to larger pieces, the Wolastoqey's artist's work is sought after.
I think it's this wonderful mesh of looking at his community, his culture, their past, and putting his own artistic spin on things.
Pearly Dutcher sees the basket as a symbol of Indigenous resilience.
It really represents how all of our people come together, and that weave and the weavers and standards kind of represent all of our people kind of, working together, keeping each other strong.
Baskets to carry teachings and tradition into this generation. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Nguitkook First Nation.
3 new books written in First Nations languages were launched this week at a special event held to mark Indigenous Literacy Day. Around 360,000 school children in classrooms across Australia tuned in to watch the book launch, which broadcast live from the Sydney Opera House as part of a wider celebration of Indigenous stories, culture, and languages. Ricky Kirby went along to join in the festivities.
An audience of over 100 First Nations primary school students have come to the Sydney Opera House, and thousands have tuned in from schools across the country to be entertained with song, dance and storytelling.
This event's incredible for us. It's the biggest celebration we do around our communities, and it's really about getting their voice up front and telling their own stories.
Today's celebration saw the launch of 3 bilingual books.
It is my favourite day of the year because nationally people are celebrating our First Nation stories, storytelling, our languages, our culture, and we are elevating particularly our young people into the space of Australian literature.
The books have been written by students on country at Junchinjara Remote Community School and Vincentia High School on the south coast of New South Wales. Junchinjara is one of the most remote communities in Australia, adding weight to this year's theme of Be a Proud Voice for Country.
This is about where's my dog? In Anangu we say, Papa.
There's a lot of stories in these books made from all of the kids, but they're mainly about the ocean and our connection to our country.
There are over 7,500 published Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander writers and storytellers, and today we are actually celebrating dozens more, and that's a wonderful thing.
Making the day even more special for the kids, performances by ILF ambassadors Jessica Mauboy, Justine Clark and Josh Pike.
Music, plays a huge role of learning how to read and write. So, it's close to my heart, and the fact that I get to do that here today is really special.
Ricky Kirby, NITV News.
Thanks to our friends at NITV for that story. It's been a busy couple of weeks for singer, songwriter, and lawyer Desiree Dorian. Dorian, who's a member of Opaskwayak Cree Nation, has just released her 7th album, and the 3-time Manitoba Country Music Award winner has just received another nomination for Female Artist of the Year. Tonight on Face to Face, she tells us that it takes a lot of hard work to make it in the music business.
The days of being discovered are long gone. You know, we're not in an American Idol world where someone's going to come and knock on your door and say, wow, you're super talented, we'd love to make you a star. Like, that doesn't happen. And so it takes an incredible amount of work. You know, sometimes I don't get a chance to sit down and just even catch my breath because I'm responding to emails and I'm, you know, ordering more merchandise or whatever the case might be. But it's always something. And I think that that's really important when it comes to, you know, I cannot stress enough that you cannot sit idly if this is something that you want to do. It does take a lot of work, and you have to be okay with the word no, because for every yes that I've had, there have been maybe 500 no's.
And you can catch our entire interview with Desiree and a performance tonight on Face to Face right after the news at 6:30 Eastern Time. That is all the time we have for your first look at the day's news. You can stay up to date with the latest by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. And I will see you back here at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.